There are connections that leave deep scars in a parent's life. Just because we share blood does not mean that our relationship is always filled with love and grace. Sometimes we find ourselves entangled in silent pain and unbearable resentment. When the suffering lasts too long, we can no longer discern who is at fault, and we endlessly question how a relationship that began with love could lead to such anguish, ultimately losing our place in our hearts. The Buddha said it this way: children come as blessings, but also as a result of past life connections. Have I not raised my children properly? Endless self-blame begins, and it becomes a wound that hurts my heart and remains deeply within me, not healing even as time passes. One day, a disciple asked the Buddha, "Master, I have done everything I can for my child. I tightened my belt and set aside my pride, trying to understand the child's choices. Yet all I receive in return is resentment. The words, 'Why did you raise me this way?' now pierce my heart. Where did I go wrong?" The Buddha spoke quietly, saying, "You have done nothing wrong. If you have done everything for your child, that is a virtue. It is just that the time for the child to recognize that virtue has not yet come. A parent's heart is virtuous, but a child can respond to it as a burden. There are no parents who don't love their children. They think first about what their child will eat before what they want to eat. And even if they endure their own pain, they lose sleep over their child's slightest discomfort. After doing everything for them, sometimes what comes back from the child when they grow up is not gratitude but resentment. Why did mom always do that? Dad never understood me. Is this who I am because of mom and dad?" There are moments when the heart that has endured for decades can collapse in an instant with just one word. No matter what, it's true that parents have done everything for their children. But when that feeling doesn't reach the child, the parent's heart crumbles under an unspeakable sorrow. One day, a disciple cautiously asked the Buddha, "Master, I have done everything I can for my child. Without showing any signs of hardship, I have given everything, even if it meant saving up. But one day, that child said to me like this, 'Mom always made me uncomfortable. I have always lived being mindful of my mom. Master, I only loved that child, but why did that feeling become a wound?' The Buddha quietly looked at the heart of his disciple and spoke, 'You have given love and you have put in your sincerity. That is certainly a virtue. However, a person receives the heart according to the vessel of the karma they have created. If the vessel is small, it will overflow, and if the vessel is turned upside down, not a single drop of water will be contained.'" The disciple closed his eyes and reflected on his heart, recalling the words he had spoken to his child, the expectations and anxieties hidden behind the words of impossibility. All of this was under the name of love, but he began to realize that it might have been a different burden for his child. The Buddha spoke, "Parents give with compassion, but children receive through karma. Parents wish for their child's success, but children may perceive that wish as interference or control. It is not the parent's fault. If you have put in your sincere effort, that is your merit." The Dhammapada states this: "A person is the heir of their own karma, the owner of their own karma, and they bear the results of their own karma." Children are no exception. No matter how much blessings parents bestow, if the child's karma is not ready to accept them, those blessings can feel like a burden. So even if the child expresses resentment towards me now, it is not a failure on the part of the parent. It is simply that the child's karma has not yet become a vessel to fully contain that love. The Buddha then continued to speak. "A child is not a being that simply accepts a parent's love as it is. A child interprets that love and judges that feeling according to the flow of their own karma. So even if you hear resentment, it does not immediately become your fault." The disciple closed his eyes and quietly shed tears. The comfort that I had never heard from anyone, that the time I had worked so hard was not in vain, was encapsulated in the Buddha's words. The second story: why do you resent your child even after giving them everything? Understanding karma and relationships, the disciple, who had been silent for a while, spoke again. That voice carried a sigh. and that gaze quietly conveyed a desire to be understood. Master, I have lived almost sacrificing my life for my child. I have given all my money, time, and emotions. I set aside what I wanted to do for the child's dream and sacrificed my today for the child's future. But one day, that child said to me like this: "My mom always interfered in my life. She made it hard for me." When I heard those words, it felt like my heart sank, and I felt like my life was being denied. The Buddha quietly nodded and said, "Children do not always accept their parents' hearts as they are. Parents act out of love, but children receive that love according to the flow of their own karma." He then added softly, "People see the world through the color of their own karma. The foolish doubt even sincerity, while the wise find compassion even in resentment." The disciple closes his eyes and lowers his head at the Buddha's words. I recall all the moments when my child spoke harshly, the days when we clashed and turned away. The Buddha speaks slowly, continuing his words. "You must have done your best. There was love in your words and concern in your touch. However, no matter how clear the water you offer, if the vessel is tilted, it cannot hold it. If your child's heart is not yet ready to accept you, that love may feel like a wound." The third story: why does a parent's love become hatred for the child? Parents say they love. Children feel it as interference, while parents want to help. Children think they are being ignored, while parents are concerned. Children see it as distrust, and the Buddha said, "A person sees the world through the patterns of their own karma. If the heart is clear, it reflects clearly. If the heart is clouded, it reflects cloudily. Therefore, no matter how pure the love a parent gives, if the child's heart is filled with turmoil, that love can sometimes feel like suffering." One disciple said this: "Master, I really did my best, but my child blames me instead. I heard them say that if I hadn't been around, they would have been freer. When I heard that, all my efforts crumbled away." The Buddha quietly spoke. The child is currently pushing their pain outwards. It may be an easier time to blame one's failures on their parents. You should not be swayed by those words, but rather look compassionately at the wounds that still linger in the child's heart. It is not your words, but your prayers that will restore the child. The disciple asks with a trembling voice, "Master, the child said to me, I always tried my best, but I wasn't believed. And whenever I said I would do something, I was told it wouldn't work out first. So I felt like I was always lacking, no matter what I did. Dad, I felt so intimidated whenever I stood in front of you. And Mom, and in the end, I couldn't do anything, Master. I wanted to be there for my sons as a friend who understands them, instead of being a father who couldn't grasp their feelings. Whenever they went down the wrong path, I tried to carefully convey what I, as a parent, needed to say. I believed that when promises are broken, it's important to not just let it slide, but to point it out, even if it's just with a word. Rather than shouting, I spoke gently, worried about causing hurt, and expressed my hope that they would reconsider with a cautious tone. I believed that was the way of love, and with a desperate hope that the child would stand upright. I have tried hard every time. It was truly sincere, and I have lived my life, letting go of a lot of myself to ensure my child wouldn't feel lonely. But one day the child said, my mom always made me feel small. No matter what I said, my feelings were never accepted. And I always felt like I was lacking in some way. When I heard those words, I was breathless. The life I had lived for my child, the time I had sacrificed for that child, all crumbled like a sandcastle. Wasn't everything I did really for that child? That one word made me doubt myself. Master, I believed, so I wanted to help. It was truly something I said for that child. But was that feeling all just karma? The Buddha quietly answered with a compassionate gaze, saying that the mind becomes karma, love becomes karma, expectations become karma, and anxiety also becomes karma. If the words directed at a child are mixed with worry and distrust, those words can sound like a burden to the child. And one more thing was added. It is recorded in the Dhammapada like this: the moment love turns into obsession, That love begins to torment you and weigh down the other person. Only then does the disciple start to realize that the words spoken in love might have been chains that took away the child's freedom, and that the helping hand believed to be supportive might have been a touch that hurt the child's pride. However, this realization is not guilt. Rather, it is the first time my feelings are comforted as I honestly reflect on my heart. Finally, the Buddha spoke quietly. You have not done anything wrong. When you have devoted your heart for your child, that heart has already become a virtue. However, even if the child cannot accept that virtue now, it does not disappear. Virtue accumulates, and that connection will eventually flow again. When love becomes a burden, how should parents protect their hearts for the sake of their children? That sentiment is always woven into the words of parents. It would be better not to do that. Now is not the time to start. That my mum just wants me to do well. Those words were all love. However, there are times when that love turns into interference, distrust, and a feeling that my wishes are not respected. And in that moment, the hearts of parents are filled with collapse and confusion. What did I do wrong? Why am I receiving only hatred despite everything I've done? Did I really make that child suffer? As that feeling lingers, words become fewer. And there are many days when I swallow my tears in silence. One day, a disciple asked the Buddha again, "Master, I no longer communicate well with my child. No matter what I say, it seems to hurt. So I think it's better to just stay quiet. Still, my heart is always thinking about that child. I wonder if they are eating properly, if they are not in pain. Ever since that child pushed me away, I have become more cautious, and even that caution now torments me." The Buddha spoke quietly. The deeper the love, the more you get hurt. But remember, love is not a mistake, and being hurt is not a karma either. You are sad now because you have put your heart into it. And the Buddha added with a small smile, "The Dhammapada has been reached. Love given wholeheartedly becomes a virtue, even if it does not return, and that heart will someday illuminate you again." The disciple closed his eyes and quietly sobbed. That cry was not of grievance, but a warm tear of love that had patiently endured and was finally understood. The Buddha spoke, "The love you have given for your child has already become a virtue in the law. Even if the child cannot accept it now, that heart does not scatter into the void. Gongdok flows like a river, and when the time is right, your sincerity will remain in that child's heart." The disciple asks, "Master, what should I do now? My child keeps rejecting me, and I don't know where to place my worry for my child." The Buddha replied softly, "Now stop speaking and pray for yourself. Prayer reaches farther than words and seeps deeper than speech. Although your child rejects your words now, they will not be able to reject your prayers. Prayer melts away karma, and love flows again. Even at this moment, somewhere, a parent is unable to close their eyes, holding words in their heart, enduring the day with worry for their child. That love is never small, and it is never in vain. However, right now, that love is searching for a path to flow." The next story. The reason why the more you hold on to your child, the further they drift away. The more anxious the heart, the more parents try to hold on to their children. Don't live like that. Why do you keep going down that path? Listen to your mother. But the Buddha said, "The desire to hold on comes from the afflictions you cannot let go of. It is not that love is deep, but that anxiety is deep." A woman quietly approached the Buddha and knelt down. Her eyes reflected a weary weight and a lingering worry that wouldn't easily fade away. In a soft yet powerless voice, she spoke, "O Blessed One, I mourn in silence several times a day without any news. On days when I don't receive a call, I can't help but wonder if something has happened or if they're just sleeping. And my thoughts spiral, making it impossible for my heart to settle. Even though my child avoids contacting me, I still spend my days worrying about trivial things, like whether they're eating well, and if they're feeling any pain." The Buddha listened silently until she finished speaking. After a moment of silence, the Buddha spoke quietly. "Your love is not deep, your anxiety is deep." And he added softly, "Worry is another form of love. But anxiety becomes a wall that blocks the path of compassion. Anxiety drives children away, while love makes them wait. Now do not chase after your heart, sit still in that place and begin to pray for that child. Words may be rejected, but prayers will not be. How can I let go of this heart? The Buddha said, letting go does not mean abandoning your children. It means stopping your anxiety. When anxiety disappears, love becomes virtue. Those who cling resist the flow, while those who let go flow peacefully with the river. Sometimes you need to distance yourself in order to meet again. The fourth story. When parents empty their burdens first, the path for their children opens up. When the love for a child becomes too deep, that love can sometimes turn into worry, worry into anxiety, and anxiety into a sense of loss of control. Parents only wish for their child not to fall apart, but the child may feel suffocated by that love and turn away. In such times, parents tend to speak less, hold their breath, and swallow their feelings internally. However, the Buddha said, the deeper the love, the more silence becomes suffering. But if you must speak out of suffering, speak through prayer. One day, a disciple asked the Buddha, Master, I no longer speak to my child. No matter what I say, it only leaves wounds, and the child tries to avoid me. Nevertheless, I can never give up my wish for that child to do well. What should I do with that feeling? Can both that child and I find peace? The Buddha quietly answered, if you cannot express it in words, convey your heart through prayer. Prayer dissolves karma, attracts favorable circumstances, and conveys the sincerity you could not express more deeply. And the Buddha told the story of a child who lived in suffering due to deep karma. This child always failed, struggled without resolution, and lived, blaming their parents for their life. However, the mother did not scold the child. She quietly entered the temple, holding the child's name close to her heart, and prayed, may this child be freed from my karma and find their own light. May the path of this child not be blocked due to the karma I have created. In this life, I will bear the sins on their behalf. May this child go in peace. The mother's prayer flowed silently, but it became a virtue that gradually began to illuminate the child's path. The Buddha said, a child's future depends on the heart of the parents. When parents cut off their burdens and accumulate virtue, that intention is conveyed to their children. Even if it is not visible, that virtue does not linger in the air, but reaches the backs of their children. The disciple asked again, Master, I have said many things to my child. I have scolded, expressed my disappointment, and sometimes spoken coldly. Now if I pray, will all those wounds be healed? The Buddha replied with a compassionate face, prayer does not cover the past, but changes the future. If the words you spoke to your child have become a wound, your prayer will become a lotus petal that wraps around that wound. Prayer extinguishes the fire of karma and breaks down the walls of hatred. Words may create walls, but prayer opens doors. This is conveyed in the scriptures. A prayer made with sincere heart reaches further than words, and that heart flowing with compassion purifies one's own karma. Therefore, the Buddha advised to pray instead of speaking to parents. This is because it is the language of the heart. The Buddha spoke these words at the end. Do not try to change your child, but change yourself. When you change, the relationship with that child will improve, and that connection will no longer be a source of suffering. Karma stops when I can stop it. Even now, countless parents live each day like a prayer with the intention of doing well for their children. That heart will never disappear. Rather, now is the time to convey that love through prayer, rather than words, and through good deeds, rather than admonishment. Your prayers are still flowing like light behind your child. In the fifth story, there are days when the words you want to say to your child linger only in your heart. As prayer begins to reach the heart that words could not. When words are spoken, they become wounds, and when silence is kept, it leads to loneliness. The hearts of parents quietly burn in between. However, the Buddha said, words leave karma and prayers leave blessings. If you can no longer speak, Your silence will become virtue and flow to your child. Some parents were unable to express their desire to help their children. It was because I was afraid that my child would run away again if they heard those words. Instead, the parents quietly prayed every morning. May this child find light on their own path with your mercy. Dissolve this child's karma. This prayer took a year, and one day the child returned and simply said this: "Mother, my feelings have changed a lot these days. I want to try starting something again." In that moment, the parents understood. The Buddha said that prayer is deeper than words and reaches farther than the heart. Prayer transcends love, teaches karma, and allows connections to flow again. The sincere heart you cultivate will surely bear fruit someday. When connections flow again, with what kind of heart should parents welcome their children? Time has passed. The child is still silent and still alone, but the parents' hearts have changed a little. I will no longer hold on or forcefully embrace. With a praying heart, silently watching day by day, parents learn how to let go of themselves. And one day, without warning, the child calls. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Dad, can I come over for a bit?" The reason tears well up is that the wait has been a long time. A disciple asked the Buddha, "Master, I now think that my child might come back. As I pray, my heart is slowly changing, and I feel that one day that child will sense my sincerity. But if my child returns, what kind of feelings should I have when I welcome them? I am afraid that I might collapse again because I have endured so many wounds during this time." The Buddha quietly replied, "Do not bring up the past, embrace the present. If you speak of the wounds again, the ties will become tangled once more. When your child returns, simply welcome them warmly and look at the sadness lingering in their eyes." The Buddha added, "Those who remember hatred cannot break the chains of hatred. Only those who remember compassion can allow the ties to flow again." The disciple quietly nodded and said, "Master, I am afraid that I might get hurt again when I see that child, as old words come back to me." The Buddha spoke with a compassionate smile. "It may seem that remembering your wounds protects you, but those wounds will become the chains that bind you once again. Now the child has changed, and you have changed as well. That child is no longer the same child, and you are no longer the same parent." The Buddha spoke for the last time. The return of a child does not mean that time has passed. It means that your prayers have been heard, so greet them with the face of prayer, not with the mouth of nagging sea, with the eyes of the merit built through silence. That connection begins anew, and this time it will flow with a tranquil love. Parents are people who pray even without words. Their prayers reach farther than words and begin to dissolve both the child's karma and misunderstandings little by little. When the connection flows again, parents prepare to welcome their children with a deeper love and a wiser silence, just like at the beginning. You have given everything to your child so far, and even if that love returns as hurt, you are someone who holds a love greater than hatred. The heart you have shown until now has already become a virtue, and that virtue remains like the roots of your child's life, even if you do not expect it. Each day, lived as if in prayer, will never scatter into the void. That heart will someday become a light that warmly illuminates a child's back. I hope I was able to ease your burden, even just a little. Please share the story of the heart you've built up like a prayer for your child in the comments. Your one line becomes a light that illuminates another parent's dark night. I pray that your day shines quietly today as well.